Welcome to part 2 in our Metcalfe's Law series. This one is about hiring and why hiring is so much more unpredictable than we like to admit. Most hiring processes are built around a simple assumption. If we gather enough information, we are going to be able to predict success. We review resumes, conduct interviews, administer assessments, evaluate personality profiles, and then make a decision about how this cog is going to fit into our system. The underlying belief is straightforward. If we can understand this individual completely, then we can predict the outcome. The problem is that organizations are not collections of individuals. They are complex, adaptive systems. And in complex systems, outcomes emerge from interactions, not from individual components alone, which means hiring is far less predictable than most leaders would like to admit. First, let's talk about personality assessments. Honestly, I hate these things. Some people love them. Most people misunderstand them. Myers-Briggs, okay, it's not evil. It's not exactly accurate. It's not evil. The problem is that many people treat it as a science when it functions more like a conversation tool. It creates categories, but human beings rarely stay inside of a category. People change, people adapt, people behave differently under stress, people behave differently with different teams. Yet organizations often take the output of a personality assessment and begin treating it as reality, an identity, a prediction, a forecast. That's asking far more than the tool can reasonably provide. And it also doesn't address the fact that most of these personality assessments can be gamed. The person knows what you're looking for. They game their answers because they want the job. All right. How about better assessments? So things like DISC or StrengthsFinder have a little bit more science behind them. They can be useful frameworks. They can help understand preferences of people. They can create a shared language and help improve some conversations. Used carefully, they can be helpful, but they still suffer from a fundamental limitation. They describe an individual and organization's experience interactions. It's different. A DISC profile might tell you how someone prefers to communicate. That can lead to some interesting conversations about how to communicate between a couple of people. But it cannot tell you how they will influence trust on your team. It cannot tell you whether they will elevate accountability. It cannot tell you if they will help to create psychological safety. And it cannot tell you whether they will become the person everyone turns to during difficult times. Those things are all emergent properties of the complex adaptive system that is human interactions. One of the biggest mistakes that leaders make is assuming that hiring decisions end when the offer is accepted. In reality, that's just when the experiment begins, because the most important things about a new hire often haven't happened yet. You don't know who they're going to influence and who's going to influence them, what ideas they will challenge or what ideas they're going to bring to the group, what assumptions they're going to expose, what trust they'll build and conflicts they'll create, opportunities they'll uncover. You aren't simply adding a person. You're introducing a new variable into a living system, and every living system responds differently. So if hiring is inherently uncertain, does that mean that we're powerless? No, not at all. It means that we need to ask better questions. Instead of trying to predict people, we should focus on creating conditions that increase the likelihood of productive interactions. For me, that all starts with values. Not the ones hanging on your wall, but the values that actually guide behavior. How do we handle disagreement? How about mistakes? Accountability? Do we show up prepared? How do we handle trust? These questions often tell you far more than a personality profile ever will. Here are a few conversations that may provide more useful information than adding another assessment report to your repertoire. So ask, tell me about a time you changed your mind about something important. Tell me about a conflict you handled poorly. What feedback have you received repeatedly throughout your career? Describe a situation where you had responsibility, but not much authority. Tell me about a team you enjoyed working with. What made it work? Tell me about a team that you disliked working with. What contributed to that? Now notice what these questions are revealing. Not a personality, but adaptability and humility and self-awareness and ownership and curiosity. These qualities matter far more inside complex systems because they influence how people interact with others. So if you're going to use DISC or StrengthsFinder or some other tool, treat them simply as conversation starters. Not a verdict, not a diagnosis, not hiring criteria, just a start of a conversation. Because the most valuable outcome is not the report, it's the discussion that follows the report. The goal of hiring is about reducing avoidable risk while creating conditions for emergence. That's a complex systems term. You can't predict everything. No assessment can, no interview can, no reference. Leadership requires enough humility to acknowledge that this is an uncertain process, and then enough discipline to design an environment where people can succeed despite the uncertainty. That's why strong values matter, and onboarding matters, and communication, and culture, and systems. All those factors shape the interactions that eventually determine performance. Next time you're evaluating a candidate, remember, the moment we start treating an assessment score as the thing we're trying to optimize, we often stop paying attention to the thing we actually care about. And that person you're introducing into the system is a new variable in your complex adaptive network. The most important thing about that person may not reveal themselves until long after the hiring decision is made. Create conditions where good things are more likely to emerge. Next episode, next week, we're going to explore those conditions and how they actually live. Because culture is not something leaders install. It's something that emerges.